Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 11 of SchmoeTalks. No, this is not the start of the episode. This is something new I'll be temporarily doing. If you guys have been watching the last few weeks, you guys know that I have been doing updates at the start of each episode on our little competition idea that we have going on, where I pulled some of the early pre-booked guests of SchmoeTalks, had them predict a series of matches, and then set up a point system to which they will earn points based on correct predictions, and the person who has the most predictions correct will win a prize of some kind. So I've decided I'm going to start doing these in separated segments at the start of the episode. That way, just in case I mention a match that is technically on spoilers, if you're not comfortable with it, I can give you a separated time code for you to skip to. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and run through this very quickly as I pull up my screen with me. So this right here is to just show you guys what the point system is now. Not to spoil that there. So a correct prediction on a normal match gets them 1 point, and you guys will notice I've updated it a little bit. But a correct prediction on a normal match will get each person 1 point. A correct prediction on a Friday match or an undercard match will get you 2 points. A correct prediction on a main event match will get you 3 points, and a correct prediction on the main event of the Battlefield event, which is 2 main events technically, will get you a whopping 5 points if you get that one correct, because I like adding variety to this. I've also decided to add extra bonus points if a knockout happens for the person you predicted. So you predicted someone to win. If they happen to get a knockout, you'll get an extra point. I've also added an extra point for if sudden death happens, and obviously that's directly as a result of the most, oh, that went away, my bad. That is directly as a result of the most recent matches that have happened. I decided they're both rare occurrences, so if you happen to predict someone who does it, you don't have to call for a knockout or a sudden death, but if your winner happens to go there and win, well, there's a little bit of extra work and skill in both of those, so I figure they're worth an extra point. So with that said, I'll go ahead and scroll up quickly and show you. Obviously, this video is going up a bit late, so I decided to include the extra match that went up to patrons. It went up earlier today, just a little bit ago actually, if you're a regular Showdown competitor, so hopefully you've seen it, and I am not spoiling it for you, but we had 4 matches this week. Saul versus John Humphrey. The predicted winners get an extra point due to the knockout from Saul. We had Brother Lomas take on Frankie Alvarez, and the predicted winners over here. Chance Ellison took on Brendan Meyer in a Friday match, so that's worth 2 points. So we had these guys right here who got it correct. And then Brandon Hanna took on Eric Zipper in a match that went multiple rounds into sudden death, and they get an extra point if you got it correct for that. More people predicting Eric Zipper there, actually, so a couple people losing some opportunities. So with that, I go down to the 10 list we have. In first, Erica Chia, who is definitively in first, 7-3 record, 14 points. Ryan Payne is in second. Andy Sweet is in third. JD Domash is fourth. Jacob Barber is fifth. I come in 6th place. And then we have a 3-way tie for 7th. Same record, same point total. Matt Beer, Michael Dingus, and Kevin Poss. And unfortunately for the moment, our Supernova Show host, Colton Roberts, brings up the rear with 6 points. Thank you guys for getting through this. If you guys kind of see and keep up on the competition and you guys like the idea of the show having something like this, please be sure to let me know, and let me know if you'd be interested in being a part of it, either through our Facebook page or through the YouTube comments section. I'd love to get more people and more future guests involved in competitions like these a couple times a year, because I think it's good fun for you guys, and it kind of gives an interactive portion of the show. That being said, thank you guys so much for sticking around through this, and now on to your regularly scheduled SchmoeTalks. By the way, if it's not obvious, we pre-recorded these. My current location will definitely date when I recorded this in the near future, but please do your best to ignore the fact that I consistently said we will not be talking about the records this week because we pre-recorded it nearly 2 weeks in advance. With that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I apologize for it going up late, and I will see you guys next time on SchmoeTalks. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another SchmoeTalks episode. My name is Aaron Knoll. I am your guys' host, and we are back once again for another episode of SchmoeTalks. We are now episode 11. Hope you guys have been enjoying everything we've done thus far, and please, if you guys are watching, stick around to the end because I have a very cool excitement for about what's coming next week. But before we get there, we have a whole episode to get to. Last week we started season 4. We went through the first half all the way from the beginning up until the Collider collision, and now today I am joined by a couple different panelists to carry us through to the end of the season and talk about some of the highlights of the Schmoedown for the back end of season 4, a season that saw story, character, the rise of a future legend, and the exit of another. But we'll get to all of that. In the meantime, joining me here on the panel, up first, he is a regular on TMG. He is a recurring member of After Dark, and he is one of the co-hosts of what is our newest show, Cancel This Show. I hope I got that title right. But Ms. Dr. Spaceman Alan Shepard joins me on SchmoeTalks. How's it going, man?
Aloha, Kako. I'm very excited to be here with you, AA Ron. Anytime we're talking schmoes, because we all came from enjoying the Schmoedown for many, many years. So I'm always excited to talk about past matches, get a little nostalgic watching some of these matches and talking about them. So I'm excited to be here. We're going to have some fun.
Absolutely. Drop you a bit of back for just 1 second as we bring in our second guest joining us today. He is a name that you guys will see a lot around the community if you're in the Facebook pages. He is certainly a recognizable name. This is the first time I've ever had the chance to meet him, and I'm very happy to do so. Joining the show is Mr. Brian Nussbaum. Tell me I got that right.
You're correct, Aaron.
Awesome. Welcome to the show, man.
Doing good. It's great to be here. Loving the show. Talk about past matches, the rise of great teams, and the fall of a certain legend, as you said in the intro, and the rise of a great legend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and bring Dr. Spaceman in. Let's go ahead and get into this one, guys. So as we have done for the last number of episodes, the way this is going to work. So first off, for those of you who are involved in the competition, we are not going to be doing a chart update next week. I'm going to give it a few weeks, let a few more matches build up, and then we'll reveal the updated standings. But for any of you who are interested in your current place, for the 8 of you that are involved, please message me if you're interested. But we will reveal the updated standings in just a couple of weeks on that. That being said, we are going to get into this. The way that we have done this is I'm going to bring in a few matches that kind of took place in a certain sect, and then we are going to get into talking about them. So first up, so we ended last episode with the collision. The Collider collision happened, and between the collision and the tournament starting, there really wasn't a lot happening. A few matches happened here and there, a couple of smaller matches, people with less experience getting that game time in before going into the tournaments. But what we did have is some big debuts and an even bigger title match. Up first, we had critically acclaimed the team of William Bibiani and Whitney Seibold make their debut as a team. They went on to win that match 23-19 against Only Stupid Answers. Another big match we had was what would go on to be a trilogy of matches and one of the biggest rivalries to date. Mike Kalinowski and Rachel Cushing played their first IG match against each other. A match that Cushing would win 20-18. And then finally, we had the Patriots, who challenged Rotten Tomatoes after they won a number 1 contendership at the Spectacular. But in the time in between the match, for one reason or another, they made a decision to change their name from Rotten Tomatoes to MODOK, and thus the characters that so destroyed their title chances were born. This match would end 33-32 in sudden death. So let's go ahead and get into it. Brian, I'll go to you first. Which of these matches stands out to you?
For me, the one that stands out is the Patriots v. MODOK. I love their entrance as Boris and Natasha, even play as the characters, and also I love the way that JT won the game by being the only person to get the answer correct, which was Dumb and Dumber.
Yep. A fitting answer for JTE.
Correct.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Alan, what are your thoughts on that match or any of the either of the other matches we had here?
Well, I love the commitment that Matt and she had with the characters, because I mean it was, and you said it right, it ruined their chances, because they stuck with that, and especially Matt's dialect got him into trouble because he kept saying, during the speed round, I believe, whatever, I can't remember the phrase that he said, but
Like,
Christian just said, look, you got to stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got to stop, man. Just give us the answer. Yeah, that's what the B, and then give the answer. But it knocked him down, but he still kept going with it. He didn't stop the character and kept it riding. And you could really see how it was annoying Christian and Snyder too, which I thought was kind of fun. I always loved Rotten Tomatoes. I always loved them. And I especially liked later on when Atchity would join with, I'm blanking on his name now. Yeah. And I just always loved them. And there was always a fun group, fun. And the Patriots, man, the Patriots were just nonstop. And JTE always with a surprise, always, hitting big answers when you did not expect him to. And it's always cool to watch. That was one of my favorite matches of that season, for sure.
Same.
Yeah, it is. It's a very, very well played match. When we look at the other two, I think obviously, Kalinowski and Cushing kind of bring something big. I think it's very easy to say, especially because the other two were title matches, but this is the weakest of their three matches. They were both 0-1 at the time. Yeah. They're still finding their footing in the league. And obviously, Cushing getting that early win kind of helps her out. And then obviously kind of a similar thing with Critically Acclaimed, their first match as a team, Whitney's first match in general, and kind of the beginning of one of a few teams this league's had where they showed the stuff to get there and were just never quite able to get it done in terms of winning. But a solid performance against Only Stupid Answers, a team that, with a score of 19, gave better than Stupid Answers. But it's kind of like I said, this period of matches, some other matches that I didn't include in this. I believe Matt Nost had a singles match, and this time Ken Napzok and JTE played. So there were some smaller kind of middling matches that happened, but I think obviously the one that dominates is another defense on the Patriot title. Look at that lineup of. I've grown a knack for taking these screenshots. I've grown a knack for getting the best faces in these screenshots. Look at Andreyko. He looks like he smoked the best blunt for this picture.
And also JT holding up the five horsemen.
Yeah, the 5 horsemen.
Yeah.
5 defenses. I think that's what it was at that point. Or
5 defenses. 5 defenses. Because the 5 hadn't come around yet. I gotta say it. I love me some Grace Hancock. Always and forever. She has been my Schmoedown crush since she jumped on to the little side skits they would do at Collider. I've always loved her. I love the fact that she's back again in a more pivotal role. She's always been just my absolute favorite. I love her so much, her snark. And that, when the Lion's Den was all of them, that was my favorite. Storyline wise, competition wise, I just love the fact that they were unstoppable, and I love the fact that people hated them so much. It was so great. You probably talked about this last week, but one thing I was really kind of nostalgic for was watching live studio matches again. Not that they were live, but they were taped in the studio. Right. Everybody was together. That was really cool. And some of those matches where they're just everything anybody in the Lions Den does, they just yell, scream, all kinds of stuff. It made me really, really miss that. I mean, I like the new format too, but you can't beat the old in-studio recorded matches that are just too much fun because everything, the energy was so electric, just all over the place. It was cool.
Yeah, the other thing that you had is the scene with kind of also with Christian with Jay and Burnett, like how Tom wanted like a match, and Jay challenged Burnett to an IG match as well.
Which did happen, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was another one that happened in this period, Burnett's last IG match. But we'll go ahead and move on. So, like I said, there was that middling period that kind of happened, more story focused, I think, in that moment than anything, kind of working out the storylines and getting those grudge matches in that happened. But we move on to the teams tournament, the Ultimate Schmoedown, where we saw the rise of a mega team that would go on to dominate the field for a little bit. And of course, by that, I mean Makuga and Mystery Partner. I remember when they announced this, and it was just like Makuga and somebody. I remember my initial thought being, they've either somehow wrangled him the best person they could find that didn't have a teammate, or it's going to be a train wreck. And we got the second one as Elliot Dewberry comes out, cores and fireball and all, and they become the Wildberries. I think the only thing they can stand to regret is that they were called the Wildberries, and yet they never drink the fruity seltzers that are so popular nowadays. But another screenshot, before I turn it over to you guys, another screenshot I pulled this moment. You wouldn't think it with the smiles on their face, but this was the question they lost on. They just did not care, no clue in the world, just happy to be there. I mean, look at that bright pink jacket. I mean, just everything about it. So I'll go to Alan first. What are your thoughts on this match? And obviously I can bring up another few in a minute, but what were your thoughts on that match when they did it?
One of the most fun matches, every time Makuga was on, and earlier in the season when we were still getting fantasy, Makuga was making it up as he went along. You'd love Makuga, always, 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 no matter who they were going to pair him with. And yeah, I think I was thinking, they probably got Dan Murrell, somebody crazy big to be his partner. But when Dewberry came out, I remember the moment Dewberry came out, and I went, really? But then, as the match went on, their chemistry together just exploded. And you're right. No matter what, win or lose, they had fun, and they made us have fun watching with them. Wildberries was the first shirt. Once their shirts were available, first shirt I ever bought was Wildberries' shirt. In fact, I was going to wear it, but I can't find it. It's somewhere over in the closet. I can't find it. But I just love this match.
Of you to buy one, because they were just handing them out in trades at the free fest.
just give it away.
Them out of cannons and
right.
It didn't matter.
Unfortunately, the cannon couldn't fly to Hawaii, so I couldn't get one.
The cannon does not come with shipping and handling on that.
That's right. That's right.
Brian, what were your thoughts on this match? Because really, I mean, obviously, it's kind of a joke and a funny moment, but when you look back on it, it really was a moment they made something out of purposefully holding off and not saying who it was till they got into the match. What were your thoughts on it?
For me, my thoughts were, I love the promo for it, like how just Makuga by himself and like Rocio them together, and then like when he came out and says, "Shut up, I'll tell you in a second," and then comes out Rocio, of course. You'll float too. Scary, like Makuga popping balloons. That's one of my favorite things about that match, and my favorite entrances.
I was gonna say, when I was going through and clipping bits, there were so many bits I wanted to clip from this match, but at the end, after the match is over, they're all high-fiving and hugging each other, and Riley goes in for this big bear hug on Elliot, and you see him physically jump because the face is just coming at him. And it's like, honestly, that was a great entrance, and like whoever did the remix for the music at the time, like,
was really good.
And that wasn't because later in the tournament they would do a Thriller entrance with kind of a similar thing, and it's like, or no, that was the title match, I think. Beforehand, but it was very impressive. So I joked around, obviously, but we'll get into it because this tournament did see the rise of a super team. As many people look back on it, a lot of people assume that Christian took two players who were both really good and on the cusp and put them together in this attempt to kill the Patriots. And that became the blazer-wearing, beard-having team known as Above the Line, who ran through, honestly, some of what were thought of as the better teams at the time. Their first match came against Nerds Watch, who were 2-0. They handed them their first loss in that match. Then we saw them take on DC Movie News, who were also 2-0 at that time. They beat them in that match by TKO, 22-23. And then we saw them, I believe this was a points record match against Wolves of Steel, 32-25. Above the Line wins that. Or maybe it was 32-35. Above the Line wins that. And then we had, well, I'll get to the other match later. But so we have those three matches, their main run in the tournament. I'll go ahead and go to Brian first. What were your thoughts? Which match of those three stands out to you the most, and what kind of what match did you enjoy the most out of those three?
For me, the one that stands out the most is the one against Wolf Steel. Like, there's 6 questions in, and there's still the question that missed the perfect round for all of them was the Beauty Beach question, and that like almost killed only Drew got that correct, and like it was also snubbed for match of the year, I believe. Another one, like to say, the DC
right.
Movie News versus Above the Line with the entrance for DC Movie News for Holding Out for a Hero. That's like a very underrated entrance of mine.
I mean, yeah. I mean, just look at that picture. Gertler may never have done much trivia-wise, but look at the lederhosen. I mean, how do you...
Right?
Yeah.
Any man who can wear those with pride. But yeah, no, Alan, what were your thoughts on this initial run that we saw, and which of these stands out to you?
It was interesting to me that Above the Line, they became the team I thought, honestly, critically acclaimed would be. You know, just an unstoppable, force of deep knowledge base. Because Bibiani, on his good days, he has a huge knowledge base, and so does Cybele. So I thought they were going to be the team that would be kind of unstoppable, go through everybody. But Above the Line became that team rather quickly, and it was kind of, jarring. Oh, okay, here we go. Especially because McWeeny has this nonchalant, okay, yeah, I'll do it. It's fine. Let's go. But deep down, that dude got some passion. He's ready to rock and ready to win, hurt some people.
another clip out I had. This was their first win together.
Yes.
That's exactly it. The excitement of like doing this.
Yeah. He's all calm and cool, and then when he wins, there's that fire. Crushing.
Exactly. He has the complete facade during the match, and then it's just let loose. I mean, it was just an incredible run. And one of the things that I liked is every team they beat, looking back on it, obviously, neither Nerds Watch or DC Movie News went on to do what people may have thought they could have done at the time. Actually, if my stats are correct, when I was just looking through all the seasons, briefly setting all of this up, I don't actually think either team ever won again, because I know Nerds Watch were done by the end of the season, and DC Movie News may have played 1 or 2 more times, but I don't think they won either.
Yeah, they lost 2 matches after.
Yeah. And Wolves of Steel, obviously, their whole thing was we're going to run through this tournament and play, and when we lose, we break up. So, actually, you could say Above the Line technically destroyed 3 teams on their way to that title, which is kind of impressive.
Yep.
When you put it in that sense. They put them past the point of no return. Yeah, it was impressive, man. And, especially that Nerds Watch one, because Nerds Watch were a team where it was the first time we'd really seen Rachel play. Obviously, her first match was a teams match, and she was getting better and better. And then especially with the IG matches and a singles debut, every time she played, she was looking better. And Ken was even getting better from playing with her. And this was the first time we ever saw them crack. This was whoa, something changed here. And obviously we'll get to bigger changes at the end. But aside from Above the Line's run, funny enough, the other team they would end up facing in the finals were a team who had spent the whole season making a run and building their way up to becoming these almost undefeatable looking team. And that leads us to what is a great match and the other semifinal, Top 10 versus Team Action.
Yes.
The first time these two would play together, and I think this is the perfect image for it.
Yep.
So, funny enough here, when I was going through the clip outs, I knew I'd made the right choice bringing Alan in, because one of the first comments I saw on the video is a comment from our own Alan Shepard that says, after a rewatch, this may be one of the best matches ever. So, Alan, tell me why this comment still stands nearly a year later.
Because exactly what it said, one of the best matches ever. I have been a diehard Roka fan since day one. Now, it's oddly enough, about a month and a half ago, me and Roka got into it, and I've kind of lost my fire for him a little bit because of political stuff, but we won't talk about that. But I've always loved Roka. I've always loved Top 10, and Team Action was just undeniable, man. These guys you love to hate. And they were just coming in, and I loved how on every platform they were just going at Roka, just destroying him and hitting him right where the ego, right where they knew where to hit him is you're too old, you're an old dog, you lost your grit, you lost your fire, get out of here. And Matt Nose has always been one of my favorite just personalities. I always thought he should have went farther singles wise. He had the greatest entrance music with that Rage Against the Machine song, you know. He had that timing down perfectly when he came in. I just loved it. And the rivalry between those two. And it just really expanded to this match. The energy was just incredible. Them going back and forth and just ripping each other was so much fun to watch. So much fun.
Yeah, and then Brian, what were your thoughts on this match?
This match is a great match. I love like how they got the guy from Ninja Warrior to commentate like round 2.
Yep.
And also loved like round 1 before the match started. They got like a video with X-Pac calling out Roka. And I really miss Matt Nose. I hope he comes back to commentate the season, or probably come back for scenes.
Yeah, I love the Top 10. I think the two of them have great chemistry together on their show. I love the show. Rewatching this match, there were a few great moments that came up in it. Obviously the Eisman thing, and if I remember correctly, it has to be nearly a year ago now, because I think it happened early on during the quarantine. The Action guys actually had Matt Eisman on their podcast.
Yeah.
And they talked about the match, and they were all straight up honest. Like, yeah, he was supposed to be there from the beginning. He was just late, like traffic. Because I always thought that was weird that he just showed up in the middle, and it was like, I guess they just couldn't wait anymore, so they just got going and hoped he'd be there. But yeah, and that's one of the few times the celebrities come in to do something like that. And I mean, I'm sure he'd never seen an episode of it, but he engaged in such a way where you could believe he might actually watch this. And he was having fun with it, roasting the competitors, and yeah, I mean, I love Nost when he played. He was never the best player, but he brought such wit to what he said. Like, I love dry humor like that, and he has some of the best quips. The one obviously everybody talks about is funny enough, the final match he ever played, which was against Who's the Boss, where Bateman says some line and just good one. But to me, this one also has the other one, which is after they play the X-Pac video. Just, are we supposed to record skits for this? Are we supposed to come with something?
We're supposed to come with something, yeah.
Which I love. And then obviously, this match also had, one of the things that gets brought up a lot nowadays is people getting really opinionated over the difficulty of questions.
Oh yeah,
and this was one of the first instances of it. Them walking off the set while Ben Bateman stews in his own shit. Just waiting to answer the question.
And Walker's face too, that he's smiling as well.
Because they know it's who on earth doesn't know that, especially in their sphere. Like, who on earth doesn't know the answer to that question? What was it for the fake out, as Ben does? Honestly, I don't know whose grin is more shit-eating, Roka's or Ben's. Like, whether because Roka's just like, these motherfuckers.
Yep. It was great.
It was a great. I mean, it wasn't in terms of score, maybe the match you'd think it would be. It did end 23-22 in the third round, but it was certainly entertaining. So we move on from the teams tournament. Obviously, the final got played a little later in the season, so we'll come back to that. But we move on from the teams into singles, and we go from what was one of the most entertaining matches of that season, bar none, to one of the most painful matches I think that's ever happened in the Schmoedown, which is Dan Murrell versus Christian Harloff, the undisputed GOAT of the Schmoedown versus the man who just did not want to be there at all.
Like his face is a poster.
Yeah, I mean, he's dancing around there because he knows it's the last time he's going to smile in this match.
Oh, yeah.
So this match is notorious for being one of the most difficult matches that had ever been played. I mean, both of them from the first question are just like, geez, this is hard. And I mean, some of the questions are really difficult. Like the one that I always remember is they ask the quote from the Beauty and the Beast song about how many eggs does he say he eats now, and it's like, that'd be a round 3 question, it seems like, in most leagues, and that got asked in round 1. That is intensely difficult. And so, yeah, this match kind of ends on a whimper. Christian takes the victory 14-13, barely edging out. And that score looks better than it should be because he hit his 5-pointer. He was at like 9 before that. It was painful, needless to say. And I wish I remembered the question offhand because I remember watching the match and going, I think the 5-pointer was easier than some of the round 1 questions.
It was J.K. Simmons.
Who voiced the character in Zootopia? That's what it was.
Zootopia, yeah.
Which again, like, damn, that's not necessarily an easy question either. But it's like that seems even a little easier than some of those earlier ones. But you know, before I turn it over to Brian, the match here isn't what's to talk about because I feel like there's not much to do with the match. It's the result of the match. Obviously, everybody knew that Harloff was walking into this with this is my revenge tour, quote unquote. Once I lose, I'm finished, I'm done. And he just kept winning all the way to a title shot. What nobody knew, including Christian, was that Dan Murrell walked in also under the mentality of, if I lose, I'm done. And after losing to Christian, Dan Murrell retires. That's a face right there that says, oh, fuck, I shouldn't have won. So I turn it over to Brian, man. What were your thoughts looking back on this match?
This match was heartbreaker. Like, one of the greatest of all time retiring after losing the belt to who should have been there in the first place. And also, remember, this match had, like, Ken, Ellis, and Riley. Like, we're trying to see 3 people commentate the match.
At the desk, yeah.
Yeah. That was a thing they did often back then, I noticed, when going through the season, was putting 3 people on the desk for certain matches. Which is weird, because it hasn't happened in years, but it happened a lot back then. But yeah, Alan, what were your thoughts on the match then?
This one, I remember, because we all play along, and this was one where I didn't know anything. Any question, I went, how are they asking these? What is happening? It was just, really, really difficult question after the next, one after the other. As far as, Dan retiring, I never really honestly believe anybody when they say they're going to retire. I mean, I really don't. They say they're going to retire. Yeah, right. They'll be back. Now it's kind of old hat, but it was interesting watching Christian, not really want to be there, not really care, but he kind of wanted to throw it, but didn't want to look like he was going to throw it, and then ended up winning and going, oh crap. Especially when Dan dropped he's going to retire. It was just very, very fascinating, and the difficulty of the questions, I thought.
It is.
Now for Dan, I could understand them doing that, because they'll throw the harder questions in for more seasoned players and players that have done a lot.
As it should, yeah.
Yeah, as they should.
And to be fair, Christian's record at that point was like 8-4 or something. It's not like he was shabby at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird how much of the difficulty stepped up.
Yeah, it stepped up a whole lot, so it was kind of fascinating to watch that.
Yeah, it's almost like did Christian piss Skaliski off or something, and then he's like, fuck you.
Possibly.
Still went his
Yep.
way anyways. So we'll move on from that one then, and it's funny how the world kind of works in ebbs and flows, right? Rising tide, lower tide, right? In terms of the ocean, one of the biggest stars of the Schmoedown, if you're next to the ocean, one of the biggest stars in the Schmoedown, walks away from the game, says it's all over, and at that moment, a man who's already had a hell of a year won the free for all, took a chance title shot with a negative record against Dan, and took him to the wire, then runs the gambit in teams and makes the final. Samm Levine goes into the singles tournament, enters against Bibiani, beats him to play Roca, and then beats him to play Cushing, and goes on to that final as well in what was another run the tournament situation. I go to Brian first. What were your thoughts on that one?
For me, basically, I really enjoyed Sam's run. Like, even for the Roker match, I love like the opening, like how they do montages of clips from the season. Like they at the end said "F you, John Roca," at like the end of it, and plus like how Roca spun the post choice. He got comic book movies, and if this heady, heavy situation.
Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan, what were your thoughts on it? Which of these kind of stands out to you?
Yeah, well, I think the Roca Sam one, because again, a big Roca fan, and to see Sam, who I never really, character wise, he was always just kind of Sam. He's just always kind of himself.
He was himself.
A little bit smug, but I like that. But it was to the point where he wasn't quite smug enough for me for some reason. I kind of like the heels a little bit, so I was a little indifferent to him, but you couldn't deny the fact that he was just going. Here's this. Who is this guy? This guy's coming in strong, because usually a lot of times when you get celebrities or actors, they don't know their stuff all that much. It's usually the critics and the commentator, the YouTube commentators. They have more of a knowledge base, but he is this guy who's an actor, but also just a deep knowledge base, and really brought it and just ran through everybody. Little unassuming Sam came in and just kind of stomped everybody out. So pretty fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and he's talked about it since, but this was the run that made people realize, oh shit, if I actually study, it works.
Yeah.
Because this was when no one was caring, and I think it was after the Dan match when he realized, oh shit, I actually could do this. He just kind of woke up one day and decided, I'm going to start actually really prepping for these, and lo and behold, he'd go on to win 2 belts and defend them. So it's like, it is interesting how in a time where everybody played casually, he was the trendsetter of trying, and it worked. But another thing I noticed, which is an interesting thing to kind of look at and comment on, is he did run the gambit and he did win, but unlike other players who have, like, in their repertoire, have these dominant knockout wins or these huge scoring wins, the 3 scores for these matches were 15-14 against Bibiani, 19-17 against Roca, and 20-19 against Cushing. So he didn't dominate anybody. He just had the game, whatever the edge was, to kind of get him out of it. To me, I would say the most interesting of the matches was probably the Roca one, just the clash of personalities. But I would say, knowing what we know now, it is kind of funny, actually, how many times Levine and Cushing did end up playing each other. Because they played teams, they played in the singles tournament, and then she challenged him for a title. So they also ended up playing multiple times over the little crossover their careers had. So it is funny, now knowing, obviously, they're, I believe, engaged to be married, if I have that correct. So it is interesting, the love in the Schmoedown, and you'd never know it because they want to kick each other's ass so badly.
Well, I think it's interesting is that we don't see a lot of the different behind the scenes stuff, only what they show us that is skit wise. But you've got to have, they're all together. They're all starting these relationships. Again, going back to Ken Knapsack, luckiest dude in the world to me because he bagged Grace. Woo, good job, brother. But I like the Sam and Rachel connection because they're both very similar kind of personalities wise. They're really, really smart, really, really engaging, but laid back at the same time. They're not pulling these amazing, the most aggressive character thing Cushing ever did was this move. That was about it. Everything else, she was looking nervous half the time. Yeah, exactly. That was her move. But it was good to see them both as competitors. And I like what you said, Aaron, that he kind of showed that, if you study, you can actually do this pretty well and go pretty far in this. And both of them, as their confidence built, you can see them both become very, very dominant players, which is interesting. And because Sam never had that, nobody feared him. And I think it might be because he never knocked anybody out or that kind of stuff. Nobody ever feared him. when Dan Murrell comes up, everybody goes, oh, crap, or other people. But when Sam, nobody ever really feared him. So I think he unassuming, he just kind of came and just dominated a kind of underscore kind of thing.
It is, yeah. And it is interesting how certain records shake out. Like a minute ago, we were talking about Harloff, but I remember, I believe it was with the Dan match, but I may have the record off by slightly. But I remember looking at his record, and like Dan's at that point was like, 7-1 with like 3 knockouts. Harloff's was like 8-4, but he had like 5 or 6 knockouts. And it's like, and obviously TKOs count towards that, but like that's kind of impressive actually when you think about it. Then you watch his title matches and you go, damn, what the fuck happened? Just taking shots. But so let's move on. As I titled it, this is LevineTalks today, and we're not finished. So this man runs through 2 tournaments, and then he immediately has to go in and play both those finals. First up, he took on, there they are, the beauties of team action. Above the line, took action on. And I decided to capture this moment here because we have a rare native moment of action being respectful and gentlemanly. As Above the Line beat them 28-27 in that number 1 contenders match. And then JTE took Samm Levine on in their tournament final. And this match would end up 16-19, going to Samm Levine, who would go on to get that title shot. And I mean, obviously, I'll go to Alan first in a minute, but I mean, just when you look back on it, even without the title wins, that's a hell of a year. A free-for-all win, a player who nobody assumed would reach a title shot, took Dan to the limits, and then he runs the gambit through 2 tournaments completely, one of which with a brand new team he'd never played with. It's very impressive looking back on it, and that's without counting the title.
Yeah, and again, all unassuming. He just quietly kept going and going and going, didn't stop, and he always had a humility to him. He talked shit when it was appropriate, and only the people who started talking shit back to, exactly, Roca mainly. But even with the team action, that match, it was interesting because team action came ready to play and weren't doing the usual crap talking that they do with top 10 or with other teams. They were respectful, and I like that you captured that shot there at the end of them all shaking hands, going, this is these guys are good.
Yeah, from what I can remember, unless there's a moment I've missed, I think it's the only time they've ever legitimately shaken anyone's hand outside of Drew shaking Nos before he took Roca to the ground. But I don't remember
marriage, but that was a fake entrance.
Yeah, I don't remember any times where they've ever legitimately congratulated anyone who they've beat or beat them, but here you could tell there was a respect. Maybe it's because McWeenie would send the whole LA mob after them, but you never quite know what would happen. Brian, what were your thoughts on this match?
For me,
or either of these matches?
For the team's finals, one of my favorite things about it is before the match started, they we're trying to get to Bubba Line's head by confusing Drew with Sam. I try to ask them for the autograph. And even for the singles finals, post-match, JT calling out the wheel, saying, "Oh, Harlow told Sam to spin again to get spinner's choice."
Yeah, trying to put the blame, not accept the blame of the loss, man. Put it on somebody else. So we move on for a bit. Don't worry, we'll come back to LevineTalks in a bit. He's still not done. But we move on because in the meantime, so now again, the whole back end of the season is this becomes this weird thing for a few years where you have the collision, the tournaments, the spectacular, and those middling two periods where you're just kind of squeezing in whatever weird mix and match of matches. But in that period, we saw another person who would go on to play a pretty big role in the Inner Geekdom League take that step up. Jason Inman plays Emma Fife for a chance to go into a four-way for the title. He wins 17-9 by TKO and then enters the four-way with Jay Washington, Coy Jandreau, and Rachel Cushing. And that match ends with Inman winning by 24 versus Washington's 16, Jandreau's 9, and Cushing's 22 to earn himself a title shot at that year's Spectacular. Obviously, Cushing being put in there on the heels of beating Kalinowski. Washington beat Robert Meyer Burnett, and Jandreau, I believe, had just won a four-way, and that's how or five-way. That's how he got put in there. But I'll go to Brian first. What were your thoughts on the match?
For me, the Intergate four-way, I gotta say, I was very impressed by Jay Washington. I didn't know he know that much Intergate, but for Coy, it was like, well, I think his worst match he played.
No, so Coy is an interesting one. So one of the things that we talked about in the last episode was the original format for the five-way Inner Geekdom matches was done in such a way so that the scores would reset every time.
Yeah.
And it led to this. I think every single five-way that played that way, including the very first title match, the person who actually played the best never won the match. And Coy was this weird instance in that five-way where every single round he was second to last in terms of almost being eliminated, and then had one good round at the very end and won it. And so it's this weird instance of, and that happened more than once, obviously the first title match, I believe Hector Navarro outscored Burnett by 8 points total, but lost. The five-way, one of the five-ways, I forget them all offhand now. Watch the other video. I talk about them. But there were, I think every single match, it was an instance of like the second best person usually won it. But whoever played the best usually did it by a margin and just had a bad last round and didn't win. And it's this really weird thing that kept happening. And I think that's why they changed the format. Coy, unfortunately, got caught out here as a part of that, where that five-way would be the only match he'd ever win. He'd go on a losing streak before retiring as a player. And this was another one where, especially against Inman and Cushing, who were basically head-to-head the whole time, that's a hard dynamic to beat. Alan, what about these two matches stood out to you?
I think Jay was always good in Inner Geekdom. And I always liked Jay as a personality. He was my favorite manager. Lion's Den was my favorite faction, but Jay was always my favorite manager, and I think he was better as a manager. So I really liked him. And Coy, I actually like better as a manager now. He was never really that strong a player. Inman, I liked. Inman's one of those ones that I wanted to come back. He left and he's not come back since. But I always liked him. I liked his personality. He was just a nice, gracious guy with a deep knowledge base. And I always appreciated that. In the match, yeah, you're right. I mean, it kind of seems like the second best always does better wise. It's just some whatever mix up or something happens, gets the wrong question, that somebody else wins the match.
Yeah.
Now here's one thing, and it's hard for me because as much as I love Grace, I hate Emma. I've never been an Emma fan. I've never been an Emma fan. She has this little annoying thing. I mean, I'm sure she's a nice person, great on you, but as far as her voice, oh man, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. So when she was interviewing, when she was playing, okay, I can't watch this. I'm gonna skip through this because Yeah, no Emma, no thanks.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, and Emma's a weird player to look back on because she had this weird track record of either playing horrifically terrible and getting TKO'd or KO'd, or playing really dominantly. And the other interesting thing is, despite the fact that she's better known for her IG games, I think her better record actually comes in all of her singles matches, whether
Singles
it be
games, yeah.
something like
Yeah.
the Manager Bowl, the Commissioner Bowl. She was a part of the three-way in Orlando, where I think Gucci won that one, but just barely. Like, she had him.
Yeah.
That's the weirdest thing ever. Gucci won a three-way. That sounds like another show. Totally. But
So look at different shows myself.
now Kaiser being third of three in that three-way does sound right, but nah, much love, man. But yeah, these matches were certainly interesting, and obviously this was the very quick rise of Inman to that title shot. Again, in the IG League, where it didn't take very much to get there. All you had to do was string 2 wins together, and you had it.
Yeah.
And so we go on. So I have a couple more matches before we get to Spectacular, just some ones I pulled that I thought would make for an interesting talk. The first one we had here was Mark Bernardin, who played one match the previous season and won, made his second and only other appearance in the Schmoedown. He played Lon Harris in his debut, and Harris would win that match 16-15. Then we had the Schmoedown Star Wars division, the first, not the first, I guess, but the big 5-way in the studio, which would see the man at the middle there, Sam Witwer, win by a score of Still Saunders had 16, Joseph Scrimshaw had 28, Shayna O'Neill had 9, Alex Damon also had 28, and Sam Witwer comes out on top with 30, just barely edging them out to get the number 1 contendership to challenge at the Spectacular. And then obviously one of the biggest story matches of all time, controversial as well, Blofeld's Cat versus the Nerds Watch, which in reality was Blofeld's Cat versus Rachel Cushing. As a part of the storyline. So we come back. Brian, I'll go to you first. Which of these 3 matches stands out to you?
For me, the Star Wars match, like how Whitworth came back, the same questions he got when he lost is Orlando. He got the same answer he got Captain Dina, and that big turn from Ken ended the match for me.
Yeah, I forgot that came at the end of the match, which led into the Blofeld's Cat match. You're right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such an interesting match, and I think it is funny. No kind of shade on Shayna O'Neill or Steele Saunders. Obviously, from what I know about the two, briefly, just from what they said years ago, neither really seemed like they were in a position to compete all that much because they were from out of state. In Saunders' case, out of country. But it is kind of funny how much of a differential that is of those middle 3 there being 30, 28, and 28, right on the heels of them. Alan, which of these 3 matches kind of stands out to you?
Oh, it's got to be the Nerds Watch, Blofeld's Cat. I mean, come on. One of the greatest turns. I'm sorry. It was just too much fun. As much as I love Kenny, it was so much fun to see him turn like that and just bury her. I love Rachel Cushing, but that was really, really fun. And I called it. I said, he's going to come in. He's going to congratulate the other team for crushing her, and it's going to be fantastic. And it was beautiful to watch. I actually had a blast watching that match.
Yeah, I was going to say, obviously, not the most spectacular of matches, but I do want to shout out Harris and Bernardin, only because, Lon obviously kind of got put in the same position as Bibbs, which was you got one match here to kind of make your mark at the end, and we'll see what happens next year. And he came in as the professor character and won his first match there. But yeah, for me, obviously the Star Wars match was cool, but it's the Blofeld's Cat match, which for me, even though from a story perspective, I understand what they were doing, and it is enjoyable to watch. Like, I think it is as well done as they could do it. It's the one time where I went, this might be a little too much, only because it's the only time where the story actually affected the gameplay. in
Good
that
point.
you did
Yeah.
create a 2-on-1 scenario.
First handicap.
Very good point.
But on the other hand, though, even though it was a TKO loss, considering it was 2 versus 1 for a 19-18 score,
Right?
this was the first time you really saw Rachel step up. And because round 2, you can easily play a 2-person team, but in round 1 right there was an opportunity if everyone went perfect for it to be 18-9. And that's where the unfairness comes in, and she still hung on to them like it was nothing, which I think is incredible. But obviously, there's the shot there at the end of everybody hanging out with each other. And I think it is interesting, when we talk about kind of blurring the lines of the Schmoedown. If you look at Mark Andreyko, I think this was the moment where he went, I don't know if I can do this anymore, because he looks incredibly uncomfortable, and I don't have a clip of it, but in the post scene as well, he looks so uncomfortable. Like with what's going
the whole
on.
time.
And I think it's one of those things where, like, you hear it in theory and everyone agrees to it, and obviously everybody knows that it's acting, like Ken's playing a part, but he is in that moment so convincingly a dickbag that it's like you almost start to really feel bad for the people in that table. Like, the only one who looks like he's enjoying himself is Burnett because he finally won a match. Like, that's what it is. And he also didn't play very well either. It really was Andreyko versus Cushing there.
Yeah, the whole time.
But yeah, so with that being said, all these matches happen, as is with every season. You play, and it builds to the spectacular. Now, as we did with the collision in the last video, I'm going to intro the matches, and then we'll kind of go through them one by one. So the 6 matches going into it, we had the Manager Bowl, in which the 4 kind of official managers of the league, Dagnino, Jay Washington, Ricky Hayberg, and Emma Fyfe, took each other on in a match. We had the Star Wars Iron Man match between Knapsack and Whitwer. We had the Inner Geekdom tournament, or the Inner Geekdom championship between Navarro and Inman. We had the match between Top 10 and Team Action. If I remember correctly, I know the stipulation for Action for Top 10 was that they had to retire as a team for a year if they lost. I forget what the one for Action was. They also had something.
They get house shot, I believe.
If they won, so it was just if we win and you lose, this happens. But there wasn't anything the other way.
Yeah.
Well, if Top 10 lose, they break up for a year, and Action wins, they get house shot.
Right. So but that's what I'm saying. That's one direction. There wasn't anything if it went the other way.
Yeah. That's it.
Okay. All right. Because I couldn't remember, but I guess that does line up.
Wait. Actually, they get number contendership Top 10.
Oh, so just if it went the other way, Top 10 got a number 1 contender.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes more sense. So then we had the Schmoedown Spectacular. Obviously, we have the teams title match between the Patriots and Above the Line. And then we had the singles title match between Harloff and Levine. So let's go through this. So the first one that happened was the Manager Bowl. We had Jay Washington of, I believe it was the Viper Squad at the time.
Misfits.
Misfits. Sure.
Yeah, Misfits and
Sure. They had about 3 names. Tom Dagnino for the Lion's Den. Ricky Hayberg, simply representing Critically Acclaimed, one of the weirdest pairings in all of history. And Emma Fyfe, who got in on the technicality of, well, I have somebody, and that somebody was enough, as Fyfe would go on to win by a score of 18 to Dagnino 16 to Washington's 12 to Hayberg's meekly 5. So let's go get into it. Brian, what were your thoughts on that match when it happened?
For me, I love the opening, like how line deck members came out of limo, and then like Gucci said, like, you know who this guy is? Then like, oh look, someone else. And also love like the end, like insert GIF, you're a buffoon.
Yeah, that did come from this. Alan, what were your thoughts on the match?
It was fine. It was all right. I thought it was weird that Fyfe was let in because I do have somebody, and a couple other scenes that she was talking about. I want to be a manager, blah blah blah, and I was going great. But at least maybe she won't interview anymore. That'd be great. But But I was pulling for Gucci. I was pulling for Finstock the whole time. I wanted him to win, so I was a little kind of at the end when she pulled it out.
He's another one. He seems to play better in matches like this, like these weird
Yeah.
multi-person matches. But then you put him up against like he won the one in Orlando. He almost won this. Did he? No, he didn't play in the Commissioner Bowl. But then you put him up against like Burnett, and it's like, oh my god, this.
Actually, he did play Commissioner Bowl. Actually, he did.
He did play. Okay, I thought I remembered him, and he didn't do poorly there either. But you know, then you get him in the solo matches, and it's like, good lord, what happened?
What's happening? Yeah.
But yeah, and I think obviously kind of the big one that came with this was, you know, it was kind of the foundation of what would go on to become the Fife Club, which, even though obviously Emma's not around anymore, Rachel's not around anymore, and Clark's not around anymore, that quad of players was the kind of the beginning foundation of what the Schmoedown really is now, where it's players who work together, they're tight-knit, they cover multiple divisions, because you had a team, 3 singles players, and an IG specialist. They were studying together, they were working together, they were developing gameplay together, and like seeing that and what that did for their success, I really think is what spurred the evolution that eventually led to the much more team mentality and eventually led to kind of the team sport that it's become now in a certain sense.
Yeah.
So this, you know, even though it wasn't the best of matches, it is kind of an interesting one when you look back on the repercussions it had going forward. But with that said, you know, we'll move on. The second match that aired for the Spectacular then was the Inner Geekdom Championship. Hector Navarro defends. He won the title against Burnett. He defended against Johns. He goes up against the new hotshot, Jason Inman, which people remember. This was his second title shot, Inman, because he challenged for teams as well. He didn't win that one, but he does win this one in a Trek uniform. Looking a little too excited in that picture, but Jason Inman gets the win, 24-23, becomes the new champion. Yeah, so Alan, I'll go to you first. What were your thoughts on this match?
This match really kind of showed the downfall of Navarro, to be honest with you, because he never really came back and did much. He came back and had some other matches, but he did not do well at all. He got stomped.
And we brought I brought it up in the last video. I said he to me the definition that the IG League moved on shortly after this was Navarro played Hlavik and got stomped by Hlavik, and then Smets played both of them and stomped both of them out.
Stomped both of them, exactly.
That's the quick evolution of the IG League.
Yeah, and one of my favorite lines of all time was Burnett's, you know, always going after Navarro, and Burnett doing his, you know, and tomorrow Navarro. Yeah, I love that. One of my favorite moments ever. But this match, you really got to see Inman kind of, okay, I'm gonna dominate this a little bit. And then Navarro missed a couple of questions, if I recall, that were kind of easy. And I went, wait, how did you miss that? So it was kind of interesting. But you're starting to show the blank spots and not being as dominant. And that might have been, he didn't really, his heart wasn't in it anymore. Who knows what really is behind all the scenes there? But interesting in that regard.
Yeah, it is certainly. Brian, what were your thoughts on the IG title match there?
For me, it was a good title match. I loved Inman's entrance as Riker from Star Trek. And also, my favorite thing about this match is when Navarro got moved these dates, and when it did, challenged Scumbag, move these dates, take it home, Josh.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this really was the match where it's like, after this, you kind of saw that transition, because obviously next, you know, we'll get to it with the next set of videos, but the corruption comes in, the tournament becomes a thing, you start to see Kalinowski take it a step up, Cushion takes it a step up, Konopik comes in, and to be fair to him, Inman did take it that step up further as well. He never had as many chances to play, but he even when he lost it, he was hanging, and I guess people kind of forget the person that Inman beat in his defense was Mark Donica, who also came in and kind of stepped it up quick and was playing well. So this really was the first match where the IG really went from, low scores and just a bunch of fun 5-ways to, no, these people are taking it serious and they're playing well. Speaking of taking it seriously, though, we move on to the third match that came in this series, which was that Star Wars match, an Iron Man match between Knapsack and Witwer. Basically, if I remember correctly, the format was 30 minutes of just straight questions and then a 2-minute speed round. And talk about the ultimate climax of a speed round. Witwer's up by 2 points, loses a point, Knapsack gets a point, and on a question that's asked on the final second of the match, buzzer beater question, Witwer gets it right and wins the belt from Ken Knapsack. This shot is everybody just releasing the last half hour of stress out of their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Because they look absolutely insane. So I'll go ahead and go to Brian first. What were your thoughts on this match when it happened?
This match was the best matches of the spectacular. It's also like the final match we ever see of Sam Witwer play, because I remember him saying like he doesn't want to play no more Showdown.
No, he has no interest. And one of the things I noticed, because and I'll go to you in a sec, Alan. People, when Witwer kind of, because obviously, he backed out because he got Supergirl, and that was his initial reason for backing out, was because he booked Supergirl, and then he just never came back. And I remember there was the video that kind of went around where on one of his Twitch streams he kind of blew up for a sec because he got sick of people asking about the Schmoedown, and he just said, "Look, it's not for. I have no interest. It's not for me. I don't want to go back. Stop asking me about it." And people kind of took that in a bad way. And I remember when I watched through this match a little bit to kind of look through and keep up with the score and get some clips. And I took this picture because to me, this should have been the signal that he probably wouldn't ever play again. Is this the face of a guy that's happy to have won? I honestly feel like this Star Wars match made him so miserable to sit through that he just went, I never want to do this again. Because in that whole moment, there's more to that, obviously, but he's like just staring around, dazed out of his mind, and Riley literally has to like, all right, now pick it up and point it at the camera, and now look to this camera, and he's trying to direct it the whole way through, and he just has this look that says, I don't want to fucking be here anymore. From the get-go, which seeing that, looking back on it, it's like, I don't know, maybe we should have seen it coming that he didn't want to come back. Because even in the post-game interview, I think they did a story bit where, like, Emma tried to come in and recruit him to the faction as well, and he just kind of went, he accepted it, but it was like, okay, yeah, sure. It was like do I actually have to show up type of thing, But Alan, what were your thoughts on this match? Because it was incredible.
It was an amazing match as far as, and this was the one that made me go, I don't want to ever really do a Star Wars match. Of course, I went on to do the TMG Star Wars tournaments, but because of all of the knowledge, I know, surprisingly, but they have to know so much. The depth of this stuff is so insane. By knowing the droid names, and you're getting most of your information from the visual encyclopedias and not the actual films, unless you're sifting through the credits and watching all the behind the scenes of those movies and learning all these different things. But it was really incredible to see, and the tension was really good. And yeah, I think you pointed out exactly right that at the end of that, when he won, he goes, "Oh crap, what did I do? Why did they let me win it on that after the buzzer? Because now I have to show up again. I have to do more of this stuff. I don't know if I can handle this. The pressure, they always talk about under the lights when you're on there doing that, and I don't have time for this. I'm trying to be an actor. I'm trying to do all this stuff. I don't want to really be involved in this." And then we see Ken got crushed. Right. But we see that great heel turn, and what I really liked was right after that, he's on the desk. Ken's on the desk calling the next thing. So it was kind of amazing.
You got to deal with it.
Got to deal with it, and just did it like a pro.
And I think part of it is also, this is because like now obviously we know the Star Wars League to be that intense, like if you miss a question you're fucked type of league.
Yes.
But up until this point, like the Star Wars, like he played one singles match versus his buddy Freddie Prinze Jr. Then he played a Team Star Wars match with his buddy Freddie versus John and Ken, who he'd become friendly with. Then he played a live match at Celebration, in the midst of all the fans and stuff. And then he played a 5-way, which, despite the fact that it was a high-scoring game, they were all taking it very lightheartedly. No one there was, in the heat. Whereas, this, 30 minutes of straight questions and then obviously that buzzer beater ending. It's that's enough to make anybody go, is this what this is now? Fuck.
Yeah.
Do I want to keep doing it?
Right.
And it's unfortunate because I think I think he'd still play well in the modern, without having to study, I think he'd still play really well, but I totally get and respect why he didn't come back. Because,
for sure.
Again, I made jokes about Christian looking miserable when he won, but he actually looks you're playing trivia, and he looks physically exhausted from everything that you're going through. And it's that's not fun. And I honestly think that's kind of why they strayed away from doing these. As fun as they are for us to watch, they just look mentally exhausting for the people playing them. Which sucks, because one of the things, going into the new season, right, they've had PJ Campbell, who's now the head question writer, doing a lot of press and talking and stuff. And one of the things he's maintaining is, look, we've made adjustments to the categories. We've made adjustments to the difficulty of questions. You may not like it as much, but you have to remember, I'm writing for my friends who are playing the game, and they're not having as much fun playing it in this intense setting. So we have to bring it back a little bit. We got to do something about it. And I think that's a great way to look at it. I think that does a lot for them. So we'll go ahead and move on. We'll go into the next match that aired, which was the team's title match, the Patriots versus Above the Line. And this was another incredibly close one. Above the Line would beat them for the title, but not yet. As the Patriots would hang on, a score they actually had more than once, 33-32, on that famous Remember the Titans question. That absolutely got them. And I didn't cap it, but I thought about it. We had the moment earlier in the season when Top 10 knew that Action knew the answer, and they walked away from the table. The Patriots looked about ready to do the same thing. They knew it so quickly that they assumed they must know it. And that weird anticipation, I have this here from when they won it. Talk about exhaustion. Snyder's fuck, we won? He doesn't look ready to celebrate at all.
I think he was surprised. He was very surprised.
Yeah, which, after the incredible run Above the Line had, you'd think this was a question they'd probably know, but just for whatever reason, it slipped under both their radars. Alan, I go to you first. What was your thoughts on this match?
Exactly what you said. The Patriots gave up because they went, oh, how do they not know this? If we know this, they have to know this, because they've been going back and forth, tit for tat, answer-wise, knowledge-wise. So they had to know it. But there was that moment where, as I remember watching, going, oh, wow, they don't know this. So that the Patriots are going to win again, which made me very happy, because as much as, again, a team you love to hate, the Patriots, you could not stop the fact that they, and it wasn't a Makuga luck their way into knowing answers, that kind of thing. They scrapped and they fought. Yeah, even when they got lucky, though, it was still they were searching their brain. They were fighting, clawing every second, and to where it really affected Schneider, because after this, Schneider's game really changed. Even though they won this title match, his game really, really changed the next season and then onward. Even now today, his game changed a whole lot, where he beats himself up if he doesn't know something. And he didn't do that as much at the beginning, especially when they were dominant. The Patriots were dominant.
It has gotten worse, yeah.
The Patriots were dominant. I love it.
I think he started feeling the losses, because if I remember correctly, his early singles matches, with the one exception I believe being the Stuckman match, because he had that run that got him a number one contenders match against Christian, and then he started taking more losses after that as well.
Yeah,
and I think that started to pound him in a little bit. Brian, what were your thoughts on the match?
This is one of my favorite matches of the season. It's it's also one of my favorite trilogies of all time. and also like that you remember the Titans. They both 2 times they got Remember the Titans.
Yeah, I believe,
Yeah.
because Above the Line later got another Remember the Titans question, right, that they missed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah. You think you know Denzel, and then you go, oh shit, he wasn't that, wasn't he? To be fair to them, though, that quote sounds like an action film. Like if I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
if I didn't
Yeah.
know what the answer was, I'm thinking like, crap, what shitty action film was he in the 2000s that like had this quote in it?
Virtuosity, something
Exactly,
like
right.
that.
One of
Yeah.
those like, God, which one had weird writing in it?
Mhm.
So we'll go ahead and move on. So we move on to the third part of Spectacular, which came with first that stipulation match, the team action taking on the top 10 in a match that had title opportunities for both. Obviously, a breakup pending for the top 10. And instead of it ending in a breakup of a team, it ended up in a broken Roca, as Action were TKO'd 22-12, and Drew Guy took it well by putting Roca to the ground and being dragged off kicking and screaming. My biggest takeaway from this match was I was impressed how a very small, timid-looking man like Thad was able to almost single-handedly pick up Andrew Guy. That was what impressed me most about this, because Bateman didn't get there till he had him off him already,
Yep.
which was interesting to watch. But Brian, what were your thoughts on this match?
My thoughts on this match was an okay match for opening with the final part. That question team match guy round 3, that this question shouldn't
Oh,
have been asked in the first place.
that question's bullshit. Like
Exactly.
No, it is. I'm sorry. As somebody who I don't, which it's all intents and purposes, we have a writing team for TMG. I'm not a part of it. I help approve questions when they're finished, but I don't write them. So maybe I'm not the person to speak on this, but no, that question's bullshit. Like, who is directing a film that's supposed to come out 2 years from now?
From now,
It's
yeah.
not their job to know that. Come on now,
No,
that's
it
not
is not.
fair.
Another thing about this match was guy tackling his own father.
Yeah, the great line from Bateman in the post-interview. Roca abandoned Guy at a very young age.
Yes.
The rookies tried writing the script, and Christian said, fuck off. Alan, what were your thoughts on this match? Was it as good as the first one?
It wasn't as good as the first one, except for the end. Until it actually became physical, exactly just like that. It was necessary, I think, because it built to a nice climactic, the rivalry, and then top 10 proved, hey, look, we are the old dogs. We are the veterans for a reason. We're going to put you guys down, even with the questionable questions that get asked. But it was just kind of a nice, okay, yeah, it was good to see top 10 dominate them, put action in their place, shut them up for a minute. But then when that tackle happened, I remember going, wait, they do plan a lot of stuff. This does not look planned. This does not look planned, and especially Roca's face. I'm going, what? I mean, the actual shock on him. He's a good actor, but he ain't that good actor.
He's a good actor in this moment.
Yeah. But not that. But it was, what the hell just went on? And
honestly,
who was that?
When you look at the freeze frame, the only reason you know it's planned is because Roca's bending his knees into it to like land himself properly. You can see it there, where he was like prepping himself for it.
Yeah.
I think he was trying to find the softest part of a hardwood floor to go down on.
Right.
I'm sorry. What were you saying?
Well, who was that? He's I guess a YouTube commentator, maybe. Dale the Dude. That's who it was.
Right, that was a thing. I
he's
forgot
never
about that.
shown up again, right? But he was kind of there.
That's what it was.
Oh, did he? He did play Bateman.
Yeah, the next year he played Bateman.
Yeah,
and never showed up again.
Never showed up again. But I did like the whole father figure for Guy after that Bateman tried to pull off at the end there. A very interesting post interviews for sure.
Yeah, I do have to say though, my favorite part of this image is Guy's look, where like the look on his face is not that he didn't realize it was going to happen, but like he was remembering it was going to happen in that moment, like he forgot about it. Roka's halfway to the ground, and No's like, oh fuck, we were doing that, yeah. No, but yeah, it wasn't the best match, and I mean, it is kind of funny because I believe this was the last action match that ever happened. They never played again after
No, they
this.
played 2 more matches, I believe.
Did
DC
they?
and
Yeah, they played.
Charlotte.
Yeah,
Oh, right,
yeah.
after guys.
The
Okay, there
next
was a little
season they
space
did.
between
They
guys
did.
banned. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because he was banned for 3 months, which in the Schmoedown
Mhm.
is called they have a job commitment and we need a reason to get
Yep.
rid of them.
Yep.
My favorite thing. Every time Guy has a good job come up, the guy's banned for some reason. Get rid of him.
Okay, yeah. Get him out of here for a while. He's got a gig.
No, but yeah, I mean, when I remember watching that, and like in my head, I was like, okay, only because I watched the show they did at the time, Action Movie Anatomy. Like, I that's one of the few shows I still watched on Popcorn Talk Network. I actually liked their show. Only because of that show, I knew, okay, they're not actually irrational and angry enough guys to just do this. So it has to be planned. But that is aggressive in terms of planning for a match. Like, all right, now, if you lose, you're going to take the nearly 50-year-old man, you're going to pin him to the ground. All right? You're going to make it look real, like whole body on him. A really interesting thought. You're good. But yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on from the physical assault. There it is, one more time. Just look at it. We'll move on to the final match of the season of the Spectacular. And it is unfortunate, but after what was truly maybe one of the best Spectaculars, in that almost every match brought something cool and intense, we end on what is unfortunately a whimper of a match in the singles title match between Christian Harloff and Samm Levine. And once again, I don't know if like Harloff gave Skaliski like 2 days to write the questions or something, but these questions, not as difficult as the Dan match, but these were also a little harder than some of the other matches. And the match, if Christian's plan was to lose, he did succeed here as Sam beats him 7-15 going into it.
Seven.
It's worse when you think about the fact that these are 5-round matches.
Yeah.
It's that's painful on both ends. I mean, Levine looks happy. It looks like his name is at such a point where it's blocking whatever's really making him smile there, but that is an intense, happy smile from a man who's just won what might be fake gold. Alan, I go to you first. What were your thoughts on the match?
I think you said it best, whimper. I mean, especially after that top 10, that match, it was a whimper because Christian didn't want to be there. He wanted to lose at this thing. He was struggling the whole time. He had his everything covered up. That speed round, man. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
And that speed round, they were both eating it, and he was eating it even worse. It was kind of nasty. The questions were a little bit stupid hard and really obscure. There was a lot of obscure questions, a lot of obscure movies in that one. But to see Sam win it and okay, good. Well, I'm glad we got somebody that because Christian, I liked Christian as a competitor way better, obviously as an announcer and an owner creator. But it was good to have somebody else take it and be very dominant with it later on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And Sam,
it is. I mean, Harloff, I think, is looked back on underrated as a player. Like, as both a team with the Schmoes and his singles record, he was overall positive when he retired. He didn't really have, with the exception of these 2 matches, he didn't really have a bad game ever. And even on one of his bad games, he still won. But yeah, it is impressively weird how both of his title matches turned out the way they did. And it is unfortunate because I'm sure there's that like weird inner conflict with himself where it's like you could tell that he doesn't want to be there, but you also can tell he is actually trying because he doesn't want to look like he's flubbing his own league. Because I think that
Yeah.
would impart, like, if it was clear he was fucking around, I think that would destroy part of what he helped build up. But it's such a weird dynamic as a champ. Brian, before we close out the show, man, what were your thoughts on this one final match of season 4?
This is, like I'll say, both you had a great spectacular, great matches, and this ended on disappointment. I mean, like Sam played excellent. Even had a mini golf Drew McReady with him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a match, man, and this was a show. That was a match, and this was a show. As we have reached the end of season 4 now. Obviously, Alan, Brian, thank you guys for joining. I'd love to have both of you guys back in the future. We will speak and figure that out later because, again, I love having these kind of panel discussions, going back, talking about the old stuff. And we still have a lot to go because 5, 6, and then 7 with the never-ending tournaments only got bigger and bigger and bigger. Yep. And we have a number of episodes left in this series. But next week, we are taking a pause on it, and I wish I had a graphic ready, but I didn't because I don't think that far ahead. Next week, we have someone who is a former participant of TMG Trivia, and more recently, he is a winner in the Schmoedown. Amaru Moses will be coming here next week for an interview, fresh off his debut win. And I'm excited to have him. I'm excited. He's someone who's become a buddy of mine. Alan, loves him. They played each other.
Oh yeah,
that was a great match. Actually, it was a really good match. But they played each other. Amaru's a great guy. I'm excited to have him here. I'm excited to talk to him and really get in the head of, he dominated the fan leagues. Honestly, for the better in the end. He almost won our title, just couldn't quite get there against Joe, but he almost won our title, and now he's in the Schmoedown. He's 1-0. The world is in front of him, and I'm excited to see what he has to say. That being said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Brian, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I do other shows like sometimes I do a Red Crib on Take 3. I do a Jordan show sometimes. I even do on Thursdays a game show called Wiz Quiz, brought by Wizard World.
Yeah. And Alan, where can people find you?
You can find me all over the TMG. You got to check out the Cancel This show every Monday, Tuesday. We're throwing that out there. And, of course, After Dark and all the trivia, various things. I'm always trying to keep my toe into the trivia game, having fun with that. I'll be on Player in Player tonight, or Picture in Picture. That's what he's calling it tonight. So I'm always around, and I'm always watching the Schmoedown. So keep looking for those comments, Aaron. You might find some more in the further seasons of my comments, my old school comments on there. Because exactly, keep looking in there because I'm always around doing that because I've always been a fan.
By tonight, he means last week.
That's right, last week.
We pre-record this show.
We don't pre-record this show.
Thank you so much for watching. Let me do the host plug thing really quickly. We have lots of new content coming up on TMG Entertainment. Myself and the channel runner Matt Beer have started doing movie reviews and trailer reactions, so be sure to check those out when they go up. We also have a series of podcasts that go up every week. SchmoeTalks airs every night on Mondays at 7 o'clock. We have Cancel This Show, which airs on Tuesdays. We have starting this Friday, we have our new, there's not really a title for it, but just whatever the latest big streaming show is, we're going to be doing reviews of it on Fridays. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier's first episode drops this Friday, and we will be reviewing it then. Saturdays at 9 EST, we have After Dark. Sundays at noon EST, we have The Supernova Show with Colton Roberts. All your geeky pleasures can be explored there. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stick around for all the content we have coming soon. And I will see you guys next week on SchmoeTalks.